Hello and thanks for checking out ChartGuys.com. We're proud to be one of the most successful technical analysis communities online, teaching you the skills to become a more confident, effective, and informed trader. Join our community of hundreds of analysts worldwide working together to learn the charts, generate profit, and achieve financial independence. For access to daily live chart analysis and market coverage, a thriving chat community, along with dozens of hours of exclusive educational materials. We look forward to seeing you. Let's check out some charts. Checking in on the MJ sector, so we have the answer to our question, what happens when the S&P 500 starts consolidating? The answer is the sector is going to consolidate more significantly. So CGC, after setting a daily higher low and trying to break resistance, we failed. Now we're looking right back down at support of 1343. That level held today, but if that level breaks tomorrow, that's a daily lower high and lower low, having never changed the daily trend with a higher low and higher high. We will still be looking for a higher low to form, and if we just condense it down, 2-day time frame, I'm looking for a higher low compared to $9, absolutely, but the sector will have to see the S&P 500 work on a bounce if we're going to be looking for this sector to bounce. Yes, the sector can bounce without the S&P 500, but it's much more likely and much more favorable to do so when the overall market is bouncing as well. So the hourly downtrend is our guide for the short term, and that's the case for these individual names as well. For CGC, on any bounce, I would call anything under 1459 just an hourly lower high. And that's how we started this morning. Anything under the high of yesterday, just an hourly lower high. Cron, daily support of 498 is now in play. It's about 3.5% away. The hourly RSI is pretty beat up with the earnings reaction. If that level comes into play tomorrow, there is a potential play off of it. But if 498 breaks and if we lose the daily uptrend, our weekly lower high is set. Look what we're rejecting from, the exponential resistance for the second time in a row, third time in a row. And we would then be looking back down to $4. If we hold 498 initially, look at the size of the pullback. We would have to see a huge move to get back to our high, so we would anticipate just a daily lower high forming. What kind of pattern would that be? A potential daily head and shoulders. If we hold 498 and bounce, we'll look for a daily lower high because of the size of the pullback. APHA, still a straight pullback from the straight bounce. Hourly RSI getting oversold today. A bounce from hourly oversold conditions, not very significant. Any bounce that we see, we're just looking for hourly lower highs. And the next support, if we break 280, is going to be down at 265. Every previous day low is a support level to be checking in on. ACB, big time bull move, giving it back. What are the odds that we trade between the low of 60 and the high of 113 for the next 2 weeks? In my opinion, those odds are high. I expect to hold 60 cents on the initial pullback. I expect to bounce and form a lower high and see some choppy range within that broad range. TLRY still pulling back, closing at the low of the day after 575. There's a gap to fill, 574, so that gap filled today. 5 psychological would be next. Again, huge bounce, huge pullback, looking for a higher low, needing an hourly trend change to have confidence that it can form, and then looking for a daily lower high on any bounce that we see. Hourly RSI, worth watching for oversold conditions. 571 was a little support level from extended hours, but we haven't clearly hit oversold on the hourly time frame yet. If we do tomorrow, keep an eye out for an oversold bounce to be looking for a daily higher low. OGI, pullback getting more significant with the inside bar bear break. After 178 support is 164. Anything on the hourly time frame under the high of today is an hourly lower high. And I would say anything under $2 is an hourly lower high. So again, we can bounce 10% to start tomorrow and still be in an hourly downtrend. Hexo, significant pullback. Support approaching is 56. Hourly downtrend, very clear. Keeping an eye out for oversold hourly conditions for a short-term bounce to try and play out. VFF, same thing. Giving so much of the move back. Looking for a bottom fishing playoff of 207, especially if we start tomorrow with any weakness, because that hourly RSI is going to be very beat up if we see further downside tomorrow. And then we're going to be scouting for a higher low compared to 207 and a lower high on any daily bounce. Labs, same story. 120 must hold support. On any bounce looking for a lower high, hourly downtrend is our guide. So we're starting to get to a point where if you miss this initial bull move up and you want a bull long-term position, do I think bottoms are in on all of these names? Temporarily, yes, but let's just go to an example. We could easily, let's get a better example. So APHA, we could easily hold the low, but eventually fade back down. But at least on the initial pullback, definitely looking for the lows to hold. So keeping an eye out for short-term bounces, which will likely be approaching, if not tomorrow, then on Friday. I would be scouting for those bounces, but having a short-term mindset personally, because again, the odds that we bounce from wherever we do find support and break to a higher high are not likely. Those odds are not likely in my opinion. VLNS still holding on really well compared to its peers. Support of 225. After it is $2 and then 195. Little double top of resistance, 260, 257. And on the hourly chart, I would say anything under 257 is just an hourly lower high. IIPR, bears taking over. And this is one where I'm kicking myself a little bit. Should have had more bear conviction. And it was the dividend distribution that threw me off. But that wasn't a big factor. You know, if I was short 1,000 shares, I would have had to have paid $1,000 in dividend to my broker. But obviously that would have paid for itself at this point if I got an entry anywhere in the low 80s or upper 70s. Support here, 68 and then 66.07. And the hourly downtrend is our guide. Little hourly lower high at 70.50. CURA, low, high, no daily trend change, giving it back and looking for a higher low compared to 372 and a tightening daily range. CWeb, same story, close at the low of the day. After 566 support is 520. Hourly bulls have to change the trend in their favor for the daily higher low to try and be set. TRUL is standing out as a lead bull. We have a daily higher low of 1140. Bulls bought the gap down open significantly today. Resistance will be 1279 and 1324. And the bulls just trying to keep these little higher lows intact as long as possible to create as much space on the weekly chart as possible. CL, bears taking over after a sideways range, looking at 338 as the next support, and bulls must hold 281 for the higher low. IAN is giving a lot of it back, 63, and then 50 are the next two supports, lower high every day. That pattern has to break for a daily higher low to try and be formed. GTII, looking for a higher low compared to make that 631. Hourly trend is our guide. And HARV, same story, have to hold 67. Right now, CGC is holding on better than most, and I can say that by percentage size of the bounce and then percentage of the move that we've given back. That's one way to see who's holding up better. But everybody in the sector, I am watching for higher lows compared to dump lows in the short term for short-term bull moves. And if we see weakness in the short term, I'm going to begin scouting. And these names, I prefer almost a name that's more beat up like VFF, just because if we get close to this support and I can keep risk lower, whereas if I'm looking at CGC, yeah, it's holding on a lot better, but where am I going to put my stop level? I'm not going to use $9. That's way too far away. So I would rather have a name that's closer to its low so that risk will be smaller. Again, no sign of these bounces, but keeping an eye out for it tomorrow or Friday. Hope you had a good day. I see my camera's offline. There we go. See you tomorrow. It's been unusually hot here the past couple days, so I had to cover up the lettuce with some remake cloth, which gives it shade, otherwise it'll get all wilted. Doesn't generally like the heat. And I also transplanted some Napa cabbage, some broccoli, and some Romanesco into their beds. Planted these potatoes literally 3 or 4 days ago, and they are just ready to explode. These will be big bushes in no time. Blue potatoes. Bees are going. They're ready to start reaching over and grabbing this chicken wire to climb up the fence. This is one of the first bushes to bloom, and it is just full of bumblebees, honeybees, all kinds of everything.